You're tuned in to the Stingbat Radio Network on FM 101.2 KRPG. Welcome to Dungeon Master Diaries. It's a podcast about Shadowdark and other role-playing games where two GMs talk about their recent experiences at the table and hopefully give you something useful that you can take to yours. On the show today, we discuss modes of play. Hello there, sages and adventurers. My name is Matt. With me, as always, is my good friend and GM colleague, Jody. Jody, everything going okay today? You need me to adjust anything for you?
No, I'm pretty comfortable. Well, actually, there's a few things we could move around. I think there's a few moving parts. I think a little reorg is in order. The vibe is just not quite right, but I think we'll get there.
All right, well, I think that we'll have to put off because we got to record the episode, but let's talk about that in the context of our Shadowdark games. Jody, take us to the table.
All righty. I'm going to take you back to the very beginning, my friend. After running multiple summers of an open table campaign setting where both you and I were really focused on dungeon crawling, shared large pool of players, I knew I wanted to run my own campaign and get back to my own bespoke world of poaching everybody's cool ideas. I also knew I would be running this campaign alongside our ongoing Dolmenwood campaign that you've been so beautifully running. So I had to make some decisions about what kind of game and what kind of campaign did I want to run. Armed with the knowledge from dungeon exploration and really focusing on that, having experienced your Dolmenwood campaign that got up and running pretty quickly early in the earliest days of the Shadowdark exploration, I had a lot of information to draw from. So I settled on a couple keywords that I wanted to influence my decision of how I would mechanically implement these realities. So when I set about restarting my own campaign setting, I knew it's gritty. That's the word I always go with. It's gritty. It's frontier exploration. That's a big idea. My campaign area that I'm working in is a real points of light. You are traveling and exploring and going out to safe places, and you can rely on those safe places. But once you get outside of those, hey, world's a dangerous place. And then the last term that I really thought was important in terms of my campaign is the idea of heroism. Not a heroic campaign, but then providing opportunities for heroism. So my players, I want them to be heroic. So where did I settle? Well, two things became very important to me. Stat creation. We're going to roll 3d6. You must have a 14 in your set of 6 stats, and you may place those stats wherever you like and play the class of your choosing therein. The other thing I decided I wanted to implement, along with some other house rules, was grinder mode. And I felt that would give me the best chance at creating a gritty, frontier exploration, points of light, heroism-based campaign.
All right, Jody, let us gather around the fire to talk about all of the modes, the mixing and matching, the stew that we make.
A buffet, if you will.
A buffet, that's right. How do we BYOS, build our own Shadowdark? So let's solve the problem once and for all, because this is do we really have to talk about this?
We do, because I think it sets the tone. I'm jumping in. I'm just taking the wheel. How you roll your stats matters. How your characters roll their stats matters. And before you can talk about modes of play, you have to go slay this dragon. Everybody's dragon's different. Everyone's special. Some of them have sparkles and some don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
3d6 down the line, folks. Gird your loins. There are other options.
Okay.
It doesn't make yours wrong.
Stop. No. Stop.
Okay.
Because I don't know, man. We have this conversation has been going on since time immemorial.
It's in the very first DMG.
I understand that, but okay. We have to figure out how these characters what these characters are good at. We have 6 stats because we have to, because blah, blah, blah. Right? So here's the thing. I don't think there's any virtue in how you roll your stats. And like, I don't want to get back to the conversation destroying sort of archetypal response of just do things how you want, man. Do it at your table, your game. Because that's not helpful and it's not useful. And especially in this context, that is not useful. But I do think that it's important to start from something I say quite a bit, which is there is no virtue in. There's only a few things that I say it for, and I think there's no real virtue in generating your statistics in a particular way. But Jody, I will agree with you that it does have a large impact. There are consequences. There's no virtue, meaning that it's not, you don't get, morality or ethics points for doing it one way.
You are more old school than the other guy.
Right. But there are consequences. Yeah. So talk to me about what are the pros and cons of doing it the way that you do it. You have experienced 3D6 down the line, as have I. And so I think we can both speak to it, but you probably more so than I. What are the consequences for you in terms of your statistic generation method?
What I want and why I like, you're going to roll 3d6. You have to have at least 114 in there. You don't have to. You can choose if you rolled, 6 13s and you want it, go nuts. If you rolled 6 5s and you want those, go crazy. I wouldn't, but go nuts. What I want, why am I choosing this, and what is the consequence of avoiding these choices, is playing a character class you don't actually want to play is, for a lot of players, just sucks. Being told I would like to play a spellcaster, but oops, my stats in the wrong place, so I can't play a spellcaster. That's a bummer. And so I want players to be able to play whatever class they want to play. I do tell my players and play groups, like, you want party balance. I run a world where party balance is a thing you should have, so you might need to do some negotiating around that. I also, because I wanted that heroism, that idea of they are heroes going out into the world, they're going to become heroes. You need to be good at something. My 5-year-old was real cool when she was 5. She wasn't quite a superhero yet. Her stats weren't there to allow for that. Sure. And except maybe her charisma at that point, because she was a charming little bugger. So I want my players to be good at something, and I want them to have some stats. I have combat in my game. Like, it would be very weird for players to entirely avoid combat in my running of my game. So they also need some stats to back that up.
They could.
I don't know if you could.
I think in your game
it would be very difficult.
I don't know how it would happen.
Ambushes happen.
I expect for there to be combat encounters that are unavoidable in your. That's how I think about them.
Yeah, you will get ambushed. Like, you're in somebody else's environment, tromping around. Right. The critters will become aware of you before you become aware of them. You are a bubble of light in the darkness, with things that can see in the darkness. They'll notice you before you notice them. It's going to happen. And if they're ill-intending, they will.
Ill-intending. It's a euphemism of the age.
That's right. So this is, and I appreciate I don't see any virtue in one or the other either. That if you go 3d6 down the line, rad, high five. I'm going to own some Jody's therapy moment here.
Yeah.
I am carrying some baggage from 3rd edition D&D, where I played in a group for quite a while, multiple groups, where 46 place them as you want was the norm. 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, because of how it worked, was very math crunchy modifier centric. Having higher modifiers made you really better. There were literally, you could multiply double your strength bonus in this thing. Well, now it's +6 or +8 or +10. And it sucked to have a character with lower stats. Even with 46, I rolled poorly, and I have a character who has bad stats, and the paladin next to me can out-sneak my thief because his stats are better.
Right.
That is a wildly disappointing scenario to find yourself in, is as a player, this other character who happened to roll better than me is better at the things that I'm supposed to be good at. Now, Shadowdark has a lot of built-in prevent that.
Yeah,
you have
your
advantage
stats are
on things.
Well, your stats are just fundamentally less important when you aren't rolling as much, but your game also features more die rolling than potentially, I don't know, than mine, for instance.
Yeah, and I think that none of these things, again, I love your phrasing of none of these have virtue. It's to thine own self be true. You have to know what kind of game
for your game, though. Yeah. You know that you're going to ask players to roll and to be in combat, and therefore you want to give them an opportunity to not be absolutely just smacked in the nether, the down belows,
right?
Because of that.
And if I am a thief and I want to try something cool and I have a high dex and I describe that I am leveraging this thing to use my dex, well, that's real sad trombone if my dex is kind of garbage because I rolled 3d6 down the line and that was my highest stat, but it was a 10. So it's still a 50-50 roll. Like, that isn't an experience I enjoy as a player. Our play group has been together long enough, even in its various fluctuations, that very few of our players are interested in doing that. So for me, landing on 3d6 means you're probably going to have some good and some bad stats. The 14 means you're going to be good at the thing you want to be good at, and you can play the class you want. And that's what I'm curating for. Mm-hmm. And I cannot stress enough that how you choose to create stats will influence how the modes of play live out on the table.
Totally.
And those things, I've been quietly, dear listener, behind the scene, I've been quietly chirping at Matt about, like, I want to talk about stats and how important they are to the curated Shadowdark experience.
Yeah, and I just don't agree
forever.
I like, they're important to you because you you run a game that requires more rolling. Mm-hmm. And that, like, at my table, like, I'm like, if you have a -3 dex as a thief, you will have a fundamentally harder time. However, at my table, you will succeed. You will just succeed more than that same thief would at yours. That's just based on the way we run. And so I am actually leaning more towards going to 3d6 down the line. But I also understand that we play with a group that likes to be able to play the class of their choice. And so I like the swap 2 mechanic, right? Where you roll 3d6 down the line. I like the 14. I think it's a great optional rule. I think a lot of people use it. And it might be, I think it's probably the way the majority of the people of folks generating Shadowdark characters generate their stats. So I use that. But in future games, I will almost certainly play swap 2. 3d6 down the line, swap 2, because it allows you some flexibility for the vast majority of classes that only really require you, quote unquote, require you to have one good stat. But look, it's not that I don't agree with you. I mean, you're not going to play a spellcaster if they have a -3 int, right? You're a wizard, right? That you do need to roll for, and that would be a bummer. And so, like, I think that people put too much of an emphasis on rolling stats and just need to get on with playing the game. And I think you disagree with me.
Well, I think this is part of the BYOS, the Build Your Own Shadowdark experience.
Yeah.
I think this is an integral piece of it. You have to make a call here, and as you phrased it, there will be consequences.
Yes.
Based on what you choose. If you are somebody who enjoys combat like I do, like I like combat to be a part of my game, it is part of where the very, very small heroism begins is, yes, there were goblins invading and we killed the goblins. High five. That's what we're supposed to do. See all cliches. Well, if my stats are hot garbage around the horn, I don't want to ever get into a fight, and it becomes a game about avoiding conflict. And that's not an experience I want with a Shadowdark game. That the default experience is avoid conflict, because if I get into a conflict, I have to roll dice. So I'll just avoid that. Is that a fun way to play? Yeah, that's maximum survival horror. That's the whole, poke at the edges of danger is Call of Cthulhu, which has, done pretty well for itself as a little RPG. So,
small indie company,
just small little indie game is, and it's poke at the edges of danger. Yeah. If I'm rolling D20 fantasy, Shadowdark or otherwise, that's not the experience I'm signing up for.
Got it.
And if your group is like, no, it is about 3D6 down the line and poke at the edges. And I'm thinking of the 3D6 down the line podcast and listening to some, not all, because it's a lot of their Arden Vool content. It is a poke at the edges of danger. That is the approach they took. And 3D6 down the line is much more fitting there. It also means if you're not allowing your players to reshuffle their stats and choose a class of their choosing, you as a GM kind of have to start tailoring away from required party balance.
Yeah, I mean,
because if you roll up is a class of fighters,
okay,
then anytime
we're gonna talk about stats for way too long.
We already have. But
God,
I just have reasons I believe this.
I know.
I think it is so often when I watch people talk about quote unquote their Shadowdark game or the experience they're creating, in the background, what I find myself going is like, hey, how do you create characters?
Yes.
Because the characters you are telling your players to create will make whatever the GM is describing about their game experience. That is an important piece of how we're getting here, because the math on that funny-sided die is swinging by anywhere from 10 to 20%.
Yeah, well, okay, so the party balancing is interesting because I also somewhat disagree there, but I don't necessarily know that I have enough experience as a player playing in an imbalanced party. Like, so last weekend, I woke up very early in the morning, West Coast time, to play in Evo Unnamed, John's game in the morning. And I'm going back. I'm doing it again, Jody, this Saturday, 5 a.m.
I was stoked. And I was like, can I get in? And then you said 5 a.m. And I said, I don't want any part of that.
So, I mean, I wake up early to watch the Premier League anyways, but that's beside the point. But 5 a.m. is pretty early. But it's not too early to play Shadowdark. I am committed. And so, but we rolled up all of our characters on Shadowdarklings, and we basically got an Oops All Fighters party right with a couple of spellcasters. We have a priest and a witch, and then we have a paladin, and then some fighters. And so we have no thief. We also have no wizard. Our witch is kind of a wizard, adjacent, right? And so what's interesting is, you know this as well as just about anybody who's been in a dungeon in a Shadowdark game, that like having a thief is unbelievably important. Yep. And what I think is interesting is that we have felt that. Mm-hmm. Like there are, and that to me is actually interesting. Like I think that a lack of party balance is interesting in a way that requires the characters to think laterally. So what I did is I said, okay, well, I got this halfling dude who has pretty decent stats and basically is just cosplaying as a thief. Am I good at thief stuff? No. But am I trying to do thief stuff? Yes. And when I'm successful, or I guess if I am successful in describing what I'm doing. For instance, I found a secret door by looking at the map and going, it looks like there should be a secret door here. John, can I go over here and spend my entire round taking out an iron spike and tapping to see if, much like the way we got into this crazy place, the wall is hollow on the other side? And can I spend the round doing that? Said, yeah. And I was able to determine that, it was. And then using my fighter ability, I just smashed the freaking thing down the next round. And so we didn't need a thief in that moment. Now, a thief might have had an easier time finding it, might not have even had to use the whole round, might have just had to ask the question. But what I thought was interesting, and that you might disagree with in terms of just the way that you run, but what I thought was interesting is that even though I wasn't a thief, I sacrificed being in the midst of what could have ended up being a fight to go do some thiefy stuff, but ended up, because of my player ability, I was able to find, at potentially higher of a cost, a secret door without being a thief. And so I just don't know that, and I think I just disagree that people need to spend an inordinate amount of time talking about and thinking about their stats, because ultimately, yes, if you generate stats using a method that's going to generate higher stats, your characters will, generally speaking, be more powerful. But I think the opposite is not necessarily true, because nobody's generating stats going 2d6 down the line.
Right. Everything's a 7. Go.
Right. So if the baseline is 3d6 down the line, the baseline is fine and works. I do think that the player consideration of will players be miffed by not being able to play the class of their choice is important to consider, and it's also important to consider, is that the kind of game you're running? And for you, it is. And I think that part is actually perhaps the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have said many times, damn, it would be cool if you guys had a thief here, wouldn't it? And they go, ugh. And I go, well, you don't have a thief with you.
And you chose not to.
Yeah, you actively made the choice not to, for any of the 5 of you to be a thief. So, no, you don't know. Yes, you can narrate all you want, but this isn't your skill set. Or you don't have a priest and you're looking at a religious relic. Sure, throw a die at it. Nope. Okay. No, you don't know, because you don't know. And no, I wouldn't have made the priest roll at all. You know, and it's just those kind of things of you're going to be making calls as a GM. And I think if you are going to be making lots of judgment calls and not requiring dice rolls, and that's not a knock. It's you are going to make calls and say, this is how this works. Go. Mm-hmm. I'm not requiring a dice roll. Okay, great. That's how you run. Then yeah, your stats aren't as important. Acknowledge, move on. Great. Do you want your players to be able to choose or not? Because I had that word heroism in mind. Nope. I need to use a method that is going to provide a hitting of that word. Let's move on though to the modes of play.
No, Jody, I'm the MC on this this train that we're.
Sorry, yes, sir. You were.
Yes, I'm railroading the show here.
Feel railroaded.
So let's talk about the modes of play. Let's dive into the prescribed modes of play that can be found in the Shadowdark core rulebook on page 111. So these modes of play are, I think, maybe one of the best parts of the Game Master section. And when we're talking about build your own Shadowdark, they're great. Jody, I want to get the first time you saw these, or what was kind of your first impression, and how did you arrive specifically at grinder mode? Like, what is it, and what do you feel like it's bringing to the table?
The first thought I had when I was looking through the BRB, and I got the cool black tome in my hand.
What's the BRB?
Big rule book. I guess it could be the ORB, the one rule book. So I got my Shadowdark book in hand, and I'm reading through it, and I'm going, this is dope. This is the vibes I want. Kelsey's oft said it is new school mechanics and old school vibes. Yes, that is what I was looking for. That's what I wanted. And then I got to the modes of play on page 111, and I cried with joy. I wept. I didn't, but I was so excited because I went, it's my game. A lot of games are like, hey, these are your rules. Do what you want. 400 pages later of excruciatingly detailed rules. I don't feel like these are my rules anymore. Page 111 is not just, hey, these are your rules. Do what you want. No. Here is a buffet of options. Pick and choose what you like. You don't like Brussels sprouts? Don't eat the Brussels sprouts. You like a 20-course tasting menu? We got that. No, you want fast food? We got that. You want heroism? We got that. And that genuine commitment of idea to page in the rulebook that is presented both as clean as everything else is and relatively early on in the DM section is a very real pronouncement of choose. Do what you will. And here's help in doing what you will. It's not do what you will. Okay, see you later. It's I'm going to help you make choices. So armed with I want these very specific things, frontier exploration, points of light, I started looking through, and is often a hang up for a lot of D20 fantasy games is how does resting work? If you have hit points to spend, and spending those hit points is a resource on your character sheet, you and I have talked a bunch about, that might be one of the, if you codified what are the learning hurdles for players, a surprisingly late learn for a lot of players that they need to learn is that hit points are an expendable resource.
Yep.
That you have them to use them. Admittedly, when you have fewer than 6, do so with caution, as that's one hit. Anyway,
sometimes that's all you need to do to be able to soak one hit.
There you go. Take a hit. When I have a character get to 7 points, I go, okay, cool. I can take a hit. I can reliably take a punch in the face. And then I also cycle through characters at an alarming rate, so your mileage may vary. So I wanted frontier exploration, blah, 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 blah. And I went through the list, and I landed on grinder mode. I'm going to just read it. With each successful rest, you only regain 1 stat damage per stat and hit points equal to 1 roll of your hit point die. Dwarves roll with advantage. I love dwarves. I wanted to encourage people to use them. That was a nice little catnip. Bullet point. Spellcasters choose 1d4 lost spells to regain after successful rest. Oh my goodness, did I love that as well. Now, downtime also in this choice, it's important to mention here, downtime takes you to a full recovery. If you take downtime, everything comes back, penance notwithstanding. But downtime gets you over the hump and everything comes back.
That was the call that you made about how to kind of like speed things through. Yeah,
right. Yeah. That if you guys take downtime, okay, cool. And with my points of light, that worked because I went, you go to a safe haven.
Right.
You're safe, reload, go out. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So the grinder mode created also the fiction of we go out to places, we bring our supplies, we pack torches, we pack our rations. I do count that stuff. I have the fun with bookkeeping. I like it.
Same here.
You have come up with some excellent camping rules that I'm going to probably hybridize and add in to continue that experience. And I felt like grinder mode really gets that idea across. As a kid, I didn't have the hiking experience you do, but we went to a really rustic cabin where it was pack in your own food, pack out your own food. And we would stay there for a week. And at the end of the week, I remember as a kid being like, Mom, what's left? That was the discussion, was like, no, what's left to eat? And, my mom's a really good cook, and she would make these, they were called week-old muffins. And it was because weirdly, it was muffins that you could have at room temperature, but at the end of the week, they still tasted good and didn't get funky. It's very weird. Rations. They were rations. And in grinder mode, your spells and your stat damage and your hit point recovery becomes part of that discussion. Yeah. And you end up having cool discussions as players going, hey, you guys, actually, I only rolled a 1 and I am down a couple spells. So, that fatigue of the last time my party left the Forge of Fury dungeon, that was the reality. It was our hit points are fine. We're out of rations. We're running low on torches. And one of our wizards is genuinely down to enough spells that he won't get them all back. So it's time. It's time to get out of here. Our resource pool is just too low. Even though we would like to fight on, we need to go back to camp and get stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
That to me that rings so true to me. Like I think grinder mode is the first thing that every GM should look at. I think a lot of people will be repelled. We talked about this in our last episode a little bit, that like I think a lot of people's first impressions of this is, that sounds terrible. But I think once you start seeing the benefits of it, and I'm going to hit you with a couple of things that I see as benefits, and I want to know what you think. We're going to spend a little time talking about grinder mode because I think it's both of our favorite of the modes. But what I see as being the benefit of grinder mode is twofold. Number one, it encourages if your play style is a more open table or West Marches or something like that. With the Western Reaches coming out, this is going to be something a lot of people are trying, and I think character stables are so important, and they are way more fun than a lot of people, I think, who have played traditional D20 fantasy, modern D20 fantasy, I should say, and who are maybe attached to that like one player character at a time model. I was also there for a long time, and once we started using character stables, I was like, oh, this is awesome, because you get the opportunity to intertwine your character stables stories if that's your jam. You get a sense of time and a sense of like humanity to them, I guess is a better way to, like, I feel closer and more sort of theater kid energy-ish with grinder mode than I do without it.
Interesting.
Because it lends a note of credibility to the world that I didn't think I was going to like. Like, I think we had a conversation about this. I think that there's a point on the show where you can probably hear me say something akin to like, I don't know, Jody.
Yeah.
And I will say, if I pretty distinctly remember that, but if I said that, I was wrong. And I think this was a really great decision. I think so. Anyways, I don't want to go on. What do you think it's working? And do you see like I think for me the character stables is kind of the thing that really that I was surprised about, that it kind of encouraged and certainly that maybe that surprised you as well. Like, I don't know, what are your thoughts on what grinder mode has done for the game?
So what players tell me about my game historically is that the challenges, and this is what gritty, what the hell does gritty mean? Like, it's a word I always throw out, like gritty. It's like, what does gritty mean? And I phrase it as, I am thinking about the feeling of dirt on my hands. Like, when I was an athlete a lifetime ago, that sensation of dirt on my hands and bloodied up knuckles, played American football, that's part of the deal, was a joy. It was weird, but it was a joy. That there was a weird, dirty, banged up, cut, hurt every time that you looked not forward to because it hurt, but you felt accomplishment. Right. And that's what my players tell me is like, when we play in your game, it feels like we won. Like, when we win, it really feels like you won. You did something. You got those bloody knuckles. You got those banged up. Grinder mode is another mechanical way you can see the damage. Your character sheet shows your bloody knuckles. It shows your bruised ribs. It shows your fatigue. It's, can I gather myself for one more go? And that's been probably the coolest thing, is as there have been like, hey, they've been in Forge of Fury long enough that they have found safe places. There are places they know they can go, lock themselves away and be safe. They have literally a key to a room that's carved out of the mountain with an iron door, and they have the key to that door. And as far as they know, it's the only key to get there, and it's way out of the way. It's as safe as you're going to get.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then they go, we're taking a rest. And a spellcaster who's had a bad run goes, I really want Detect Magic back. Click, click, click. It's a 1 on a D4. Hey, guys, I want Detect Magic. I feel like we need Magic Missile.
Wow, that's a well, something went very wrong.
You know the player just by saying those two spells. You know exactly who I'm talking about, and that's a reality. Like, I think that's where they're at for their next rest. Is those are the lost spells. He recovered, rolled more than a 1, so he's good to go. But that grit on hands, those bangs and bruises, I love that stuff. I think that's so cool. And it's a thing when I'm playing in Dolmenwood, I will go out of my way to narrate that my guy's tired or getting weird or whatever it may be, like, because I geek out on that stuff. And it's cool to have a mechanic that provides that to my players because it's tangible. You can see the numbers moving. So that's why I enjoy that one so much. I feel like I'm going to take the reins. I feel like folks would be like, hey, what about fatality mode?
Right.
So fatality mode is at 0, you die. Classic old school OD&D. You hit 0, you die. That's it. You're done.
Nobody does this anymore, man. I look.
We're gonna get so many comments. I do it.
No, look. Maybe.
Yep.
I don't think it's a very popular way to play, is what I'll say anymore, for a couple of reasons. Number one, when the math, like, people who come to Shadowdark and say, "Can you really run a long-term campaign using this game?" Because characters seem like they're going to die all the time. And, there's a very complex, I think we talked about this on the show at some point recently. And I don't actually think I did a particularly good job of explaining why Shadowdark isn't particularly deadly. But I think that you could do a lot worse than there are 2 modes that make it more deadly.
Yeah.
And
this is the most deadly.
Which means the game itself is then designed to be less deadly than both fatality and deadly mode, which I'm sure we're going to next. Fatality mode to me screams, I want to play this like the BX game of old. But man, people house rule the BX die at 0 hit points more than almost anything. Dolmenwood, which is the official Dolmenwood rules, have gotten rid of death at 0 hit points. It's still brutal, but it's not in the game anymore, because even the BX folks, even the folks who are trying to sort of reclaim or rekindle that OSR kind of, back in the day situation, even then you have these, enduring wounds tables and all these ways of getting out of dying at 0 hit points. So I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot that needs to be said about fatality mode, other than it's for some people. It's probably not for most people.
So who's it for is what I want to chime in, and then we'll move to a little more reasonable
I feel like if it's
mode.
for you, you just know.
Well, it's there. So there is a place where I use it.
Oh, okay. Jody, you're going to undercut my whole argument.
No, I'm not. And the only spot I'm interested in using it is a character funnel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, character funnels, I think it's frankly necessary. That's the point, is you should be killing people. That's what I think. That's the point of a funnel. Is 2 funnels, so people got to die. The other part of it is, if you want to run a game that is maximum survival horror, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, fatality mode is combat as a failed state.
Yes, then that thing that I don't like, combat as a failed state, not my fave, do not enjoy that, is true if 0 hit points is your dead.
Right.
And if those are your jams, then you should be using this game mode. If you are somewhere in between, you predicted it. Deadly mode says.
Deadly mode. This is my other favorite one. Death timers are always 1. Yes, please. And it is a DC 18 intelligence check to stabilize dying. Jody, what are your thoughts on deadly mode?
Yes, but too much.
Yeah.
I like the 1. I think the 1 is good enough. That the death timer of 1 is enough. The extreme check to stabilize, you and I both have been talking about, like, we don't like stabilize. It's up. We like binary off or on. You either are alive or you're not.
So in that vein, I guess I'll ask you this in a different setting. If we get rid of stabilizing, means that the person you stabilize is unconscious, and instead they have 1 hit point, what are your thoughts then on a DC 18 inch?
Yeah,
is that still too high?
I'm in for it then.
Okay,
that's fine,
because that's the way I would implement it. Yeah. I also think that if it's DC 18 to just stabilize the person and they're unconscious, it would be a little bit of a bridge too far for me. I mean,
you only get 1 round to do it.
Right. Well, and also but the nice thing about throwing the DC up to 18 is that you can lower it for, maybe a Churgeon. You roll that natural 20 on your background and you get the Churgeon background. Yep. Then maybe you lower it to a 15, or maybe you give advantage or whatever, or maybe you redundantly do the lower the DC and grant advantage, which drives some people wild. And I love,
Gild thy lily.
I love,
if your
I love a double
stats
dip.
Are higher, then there's an
Shut
advantage.
up, Jody. All right. So deadly mode is dope. I like it. I also agree that the house rule of getting rid of this of the unconscious condition, I don't know, man. Like, we're getting a little bit off of, I guess this is Build Your Own Shadowdark, so what the hell, but this isn't like the Matt and Jody talk about their house rules episode part 400.
But I think that's what's so great about the modes of play page, is it invites you to this. It gives you an on-ramp to this conversation. You can't do I'm going to do modes of play without these other considerations. And I'm going to interrupt you fully.
No, go ahead.
Why is death timers of 1 sexy? Why are we both like, on that one?
Because 2 things. First of all, it means that going to 0 hit points matters, and second of all, it's easy. And people will say, like, what about your con mod? And it's like, dude, just set it to 1. Or if you want to use the con mod, you can use our house rule. Please send us a check to
royalties of half a penny per roll.
But you could say death timers are always 1 plus your con mod, sure, whatever. But I don't know. I like it because it is consistent, it is easy, and everyone knows the stakes.
And it ups. You went to 0 or less. Spicy banana needs immediate attention.
So, okay, talking about spicy banana, I want to go totally out of left field here, and I want to talk about a mode that now we're going to talk about some modes that neither of us are super familiar with, but I think that we have some context for talking about, except I just don't understand how momentum mode works. So momentum mode, we kind of throw this one in the middle. This is, to me, I mean this in a kind and funny pejorative way. Momentum mode is kind of the turd of the punch bowl for me because it's so weird. So you have advantage on checks to repeat an action you failed if you try the exact same action on your next turn. I like that. I
Fail
like that.
forward, yeah.
And it's referenced that you might do this in the core rules. So momentum mode actually has its basis in the core rules, not just in a game mode. The second part is the part where I'm like, I just don't understand. This is wild. Damage dice explode. If you roll maximum damage on a die, roll again and add that to the total. There is no cap. I know that there are players who love, our Deadlands games that we've played because of the exploding dice. They're super fun. But I don't know. Exploding dice is a very niche mechanic, and it leads to some incredibly wacky situations because I've seen people roll a lot of sixes in a row on a D6, and
damn, do daggers get good.
My God.
Short bows own.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah.
25% of the time it crits.
Yeah, it's wild to think about. And I would love to hear from listeners who've maybe used momentum mode, because I know there are people who have. I've seen people on the Discord who have used it. To me, this is the one where I can't really fully understand what it would do to the game. And so I want to give you an opportunity to chime in here, but I don't know that either of us are going to have a whole lot to say. I don't know. The damage is just so weird with hit point totals being so low in Shadowdark. It just feels like it would get out of hand, but maybe it wouldn't.
I don't know. We got to try it at some point. Here's what I'll say is, at the beginning, I made a big production about heroism versus heroic campaign setting.
Sure.
If I wanted heroic, momentum would be getting a big eyeball.
What about the monsters though? They could just kill a character in one hit.
And that was the second thing I was going to say is if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And,
well, in this case, it's not good for the gander at all.
Yeah, no, it's everybody.
Your
party.
hero who is level 10.
Well, what if only heroes do it, but the monsters don't do it?
No, get the hell out of here with that nonsense. But you can imagine that a goblin comes up and kicks your level 10 fighter in the shin, and then happens to roll all of their hit points.
It's a D2. Oh my God, it's D2 damage. 50% of the time, it crits every time.
What happens if they do 1 damage? It's an infinite damage loop, Jody.
Oh, God. I think anybody, I'm going to grognard it for a sec. Anybody who played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay originally, there is the original. The original. Because it had open-ended damage and criticals and things like this. And everybody has the story of my halfling was in a bar and threw a coin at the bully on the other side of the room and then rolled a crit and open-ended damage and had 47 points of damage and shotgun blasted a coin across the room into this, guy's face. And, there's these silly stories. If that's what you want, great. The last thing, this came up on our Discord recently and was an interesting idea. And the comment was, to what degree does Shadowdark share lineage and roots with ICRPG?
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to say momentum, the first half, about if you fail and then try again, you succeed.
Totally ICRPG.
Really? Why? Because you answered the person about here's the thing you have to know.
Yeah, so if folks have not looked at ICRPG, I think it's worth picking up the Master Edition just for the Dungeon Master's guide section or the DM advice section alone. I think Hankeron's coming out with a DM advice focused ICRPG book soon anyways. He's been posting about something about that lately. But long story short, what I love about it is that it uses this thing called an effort die. And so if you succeed on a check, you meet the DC, almost everything you interact with in the game uses an effort die. And so you continue to, if you don't pick the lock on your first try, let's say you're picking a lock and you have you roll your dexterity, D20 plus your dex, and then you do D6 effort, and you roll a 4, but this lock has 10 effort basically that you need to do to overcome it. Well, when you do it again, you roll effort again, and you just keep making progress towards the thing. And so, that's a really interesting, and there is a mechanic that you get advantage on checks and repeat, but this idea of effort and you continue to succeed, but your success is only partial. is kind of an interesting part of ICRPG that I think is a very cool mechanic, and it's somewhat unique to that system. So
it is a fun, I think of the
you've played it way more than I have.
Very little, because I tried to smash it together with 5e weirdly. Back when I first kind of returned Pandemic to RPGs in earnest, I adopted the timer and the effort die heavily, and it's a great system. And I see it's one of the many spots in Shadowdark that I see those fingerprints and friendship bonds between the two games and the people who created them. I'm going to throw two kind of together here really quickly because they're very short modes of play. Yeah. Chaos mode, reroll initiative at the start of every combat round, and then Hunter mode, where you earn XP based on half the level of the critters you kill. You kill a monster, you get XP equal to half their level, round down. The reason I'm throwing these together is both of these, to me, feel like clear callbacks to OD&D. Like these are old D&D throwback ideas. And we're throwing in, you wanted to play AD&D, but you want to use Shadowdark? Nope, pick up Chaos mode and Hunter mode. There was once upon a once, for those who don't know, literally weapons in AD&D, especially in second edition, had like speed ratings, and they sometimes used different dice, or there were different modifiers to your initiative. And so there were lots of, you roll initiative every round, and if you're using a broadsword, it's terrible. But if you're using a broadsword. So both of these rules, Hunter mode, XP for killing stuff. Go look at any monster manual ever. There's XP values in the D&D XP values with monsters. There it is. And then chaos mode is this like callback to like every round we're re-rolling initiative and going instead of the round the table thing. I think they're both great for that. Funny enough, because I love combat and I am incorrect in forcing my players to endure combat.
Here we go.
I fail constantly. I make my players fail because it's a fail state to be in combat. If you can't hear the sarcasm dripping off my voice right now, then I don't know what to do.
I'm so tired of this. Let's cancel the show immediately.
I have actually considered using Hunter mode.
I think it'd be interesting to use. I think with our groups, here's the thing that I think is interesting about it is that it creates an incentive structure in the game that is quite interesting, because but it also creates a situation where at a certain table you could just game the system. Like with Hunter mode, you could literally do the role playing game video game thing of I go farm rats. Like you could find your equivalent of rats and you could go just like farm them in a way, right? And of course, then it's the GM's job to make sure you can't do that. But then you're in this weird like recursive spiral of like the GM is thwarting the player's ability to get XP, which is sort of antithetical to the whole thing we're trying to do here. So I think with the right table, though, and certainly with the tables that you run for, where it would be interesting to try. I do think, though, that it does create a profoundly different incentive structure that is. Yeah, and the gameplay loop changes quite a bit, because it rewards something that is, I don't know, if wandering monsters have a 50% chance of having loot, and that loot can turn into XP, then you're potentially turning random encounters into, sort of just big bags of hit points that contain experience, which I don't know if that's the game you want to run, then sure, but that's just, I don't know, it's just a consideration that I was thinking of.
What I would throw in to your yes and, especially with random encounters, is because we use the crawling die instead of the D6 every round, we have more random encounters, so that would then drastically influence. It's just another instance of how
all the cogs.
Right. On the BYOS, experience, you have to consider how all these cogs fit together. Literally, the only reason I think about using Hunter mode is joking aside, because I do create situations where fighting the thing is the point. That's so I'm like, so I kind of want to reward my players for doing that
makes sense.
Thing. Also, I like that any monster that is level less than level 2, that's a 1 or a 0, isn't worth anything. So that's that, you got to go farm stuff that's actually threatening.
Like the rats actually, whatever. So.
Yeah, good for you. So that takes us down to, we got 3 left. Blitz mode is really obvious to me, and I think it's fantastic that it's in here. Blitz mode is 30-minute torch timers.
If you play a 2-hour session, usually that's when you use it.
And I see tons of people online that are like, we play every week for 2 hours. Yeah, absolutely. I could even see pivoting a particular magical darkness or something. We're going to activate blitz mode. You know, it's particularly dark in here.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
look at the big brains on you, Jody.
It's like I spent a bunch of time considering these modes, and
and then I come in here and I'm just winging it.
Well, we got 2, and for those paying close attention, you're like, you do. We have 2 left.
Wait,
I think the last one on modes of play on the page is the most often talked about, and this is the third rail of things you have to consider. When you are building, how is my campaign going to play out on the table? What kind of Shadowdark do I want to build? So, Matt, you want to take us through pulp mode?
Yeah, so pulp mode, the third rail is luck that you're talking about. The first bullet point is there is no maximum luck tokens a player can have. The second one is players start every session with 1d4 luck tokens. You can use your luck token to turn a hit into a critical. You can use a luck token to take an extra action, and you can use a luck token to force the GM to re-roll a roll. Can I start?
Please do.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and do this quickly. I'm gonna start from the bottom. I hate re-rolling the GM's roll. Unless I get luck tokens to use myself, it is an unbearable mechanic that I hate it. I really do not like it. And I think at one point I had an ancestry like the gnome could re-roll the GM's roll, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing. Get it out of here. I hate this thing I've designed. Everything else I would love to play with and I think is awesome. I think, Jody, pairing pulp mode with fatality mode would be unbelievable.
Spicy.
Now, I think actually I would love to play in a game that pairs pulp mode with deadly mode and grinder mode, because it creates a situation that you're saying where combat is fun, you are succeeding a lot, and you also are a human or humanoid, and you are flesh and blood, and therefore you can die, and therefore you have to rest. But you can be heroic when you are rested. And that's, I don't know. I love the idea of Kelsey signaling that even though one of the tenets of Shadowdark is that you only ever get one action, here's a way to break it. So I love pulp mode. I would love to play in a proper pulp mode game. I am not interested in using that last bullet point almost at all, because it disrupts the flow of play in a profound way that I find distasteful, to put it lightly.
I'm going to give myself a big gold star that I got this far in the episode until I said the following. Rolling dice is fun.
Shut up!
And that's why I agree with you that the last bullet point that says, hey, GM, stop having fun. You just had a fun roll. Stop it. No, I agree with that one. The 1d4 luck tokens, I always I want things still gritty and hard, and I like to, torture my players a little bit.
Yeah, you're mean.
Yeah, I am. The 1d4 always feels like too many. That said, I am trying other luck distribution methods right now, more kind of in alignment with as described in the core rules. Though you just get one to start the session, it's just so tidy and clean, and it just works. I wish it didn't work so well. And we've been using it in Dolmenwood forever. And man, it just works. I really enjoy pulp modes as an idea with those kind of two twists. The D4 to start, just once you get to higher levels, man, are you pulp. Like these folks going to be real heroic. And I think it's a great call out here that why I keep saying the buffet is I'm going to have a half a scoop of pulp mode and a double helping of deadly mode and I might go back for seconds on grinder. Hell yeah. Like that notion of combining these to build your own Shadowdark experience is just awesome. Now I teased that there is one more.
Jody, I'm on page 111, page 112. I'm not seeing it.
Well, You linked this to me, which I promptly forgot as we started this episode. And you're like, we'll do this one. I'm like, what's that? And you're like, the one I sent you. And I said, I'm old. Hard luck mode.
That's right.
What the hell?
All right, this one I'm not going to give my thoughts on. I'll let you kind of react to it first. So here's hard luck mode. Hard luck mode says you may not re-roll or use a luck token to re-roll critical failures, and you may not spend a luck token on an ability that generates luck, such as Bless. Jody, your thoughts?
I mostly like it. I mean, the reality is we have a house rule that does a similar thing.
I like our house rule better.
I do too. I mean, weird. It's our house rule. It's weird that we like it better.
Well, we're also not precious about our house rules. No. I will say this. You know, we've on the show many times said that house rule was bad.
Of the moment and relevant to this discussion.
Yeah.
I have been reverting to using initiative rules as written from the core rulebook.
Yeah.
We have used individualized initiative a la 5e D&D. And at least with 2 sessions under my belt, doggone it, I like the rules as written better. So my house rule was like, it might be. And you have some thoughts, and I don't want to spin us off into that because you asked me about hard luck mode.
What is our house rule?
Our house rule about critical failure is you may spend a luck token to downgrade a critical fail to a fail. And then it stops. That's it. You can avoid the mishap. You cannot avoid the fail state.
Right.
So I also preferred that because the cost of a natural one can be so catastrophic. If you listen to our last show, you got a lovely example of literally a natural one should have caused a TPK. Mm-hmm. And had that been on hard luck mode, man, I shudder to think what a tier 5 miscast at that moment would have added.
I think a lot of people have. So I maintain that I think that this still works. I think it actually makes the game harder as you go up in level, especially if you for spellcasters, because the stakes get higher when you roll a natural one on like a tier 5 spell. But what I think is interesting about hard luck mode is actually the part that I like the least is the second part. And I just don't like it because it feels arbitrary. And I don't know. This is something about rules in RPGs that everybody has their own sort of sixth sense for. And this is just one of those where I'm like, this just feels, I can see the problem that it's trying to solve. And that's all I can see. I can't actually see the reason this is, and I don't like getting into these conversations about like, how does the world work? And like, what's the real world, let's base all of our rulings off how things would work in the real world and blah, blah, blah. I hate that crap.
There's dragons here, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I just don't like it because everyone, whatever. Yeah. But what I do think is important here is that it doesn't make any sense why a luck token, which is a meta currency, would be unable to be spent on a very specific thing. It does make sense that like Kelsey has kind of gone on the record and saying like, downtime rolls are not supposed to be luck token worthy. Other things that are not happening, quote unquote, like in the action, mm-hmm. In kind of crawling rounds, so to speak. That makes sense. But you can cast Blast on a crawling round and to just say like, no, just feels very arbitrary to me, and I'm not a fan of it. So I don't know what you think about that.
I think a house rule that you and I have batted around and neither of us have jumped on it yet. And I think it's also fair to point out here before I actually explain that last thought completely, bear with me, is Kelsey posted this on Discord as an idea.
Where did this come from?
Yes.
We didn't answer that.
Right. So she put this out as another mode of play idea. Yeah. And so I feel like it's fair game.
Potentially coming in the Western Reaches book.
I feel like it is fair game as a shared, here's a thing I'm thinking of for us to then play the game of, well, how would I do it? Because it was presented in that thought space. Yeah. So I am not, neither of us are interested in dunking on. It is just, hey, that we were invited to share in this thought space, so we'll do just that. My thought is an idea you and I have been playing with, you cannot share luck tokens.
Yeah.
You cannot reroll a reroll and you cannot share luck tokens. To me, feels like a better hard luck mode answer.
Right. And the only problem is that there are classes specifically that do share luck. I mean, like the roustabout, which is, I mean, like it's technically kind of a funny class, but it's going in the book, baby.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great class.
I love it.
You and I both played.
I think the roustabout is an underrated class, and I think
it's not funny. It's released on April Fool's.
Yes, I think that would be the reason. But you could easily say, that the roustabout or the sharing of luck for X, Y, and Z purposes, blah blah blah. But I don't know, man. Like I also like that, and I think I will in the future run with 2 house rules for luck instead of using hard luck mode, which is our house rule that we currently use, that you can spend a luck to turn a critical failure into a regular failure, and you cannot share luck. That we have gone on long enough. And so what I would like to do, Jody, is wrap this discussion up, hear from our sponsors, and take this thing home. Jody, we're bringing back a sponsor we haven't heard from in a while. It's the Friendly Ghost Mattress Company. The Friendly Ghost Mattress Company, for the uninitiated, for the non-DMD hardcore listeners who've listened to the entire back catalog, let me tell you a little bit about the Friendly Ghost Mattress Company. And let me start by asking you ever been alone in the dark? And do you ever get that nagging feeling that you're probably going to need to spend the night in some hellish place, perhaps a dungeon or your ex's house? Do you have an easy-to-carry bed that only takes up 1 slot for those significant and serious situations? Well, the Friendly Ghost Mattress Company has you covered with their patented foam foldable mattress. You can unwrap, lay down, conk out anywhere, even in the dank depths of the dungeon or the dank depths of your ex's garage. Jody, have you ever spent the night at your ex's house?
Is that what we're going with?
No.
Okay. If you hadn't laughed, I would have run with it.
I know.
Wait, what's the product?
The Friendly Ghost Mattress Company.
Okay.
Jody, have you ever spent the night somewhere you didn't really want to? And did Friendly Ghost Mattress Company come to your aid? Talk to me about it.
Dude, the Moonlight Tavern, that place goes off. It is amazing. All night. I was there till dawn, but when we got done, I was exhausted, and I'd had 1 too many fest potions, if you know what I'm saying. So I found a sweet little spot at the back, and I bust out my friendly ghost, slept like a baby, and nobody knew I was there.
I mean, these mattresses are the cushiest foam possible, so there's no wonder you had a great night's sleep. Right now, DMD listeners can get 20% off their first purchase of a Friendly Ghost mattress. Remember, only 1 slot. Get your best night's sleep on a Friendly Ghost mattress right now. Get 20% off if you use the code DMD at purchase. That's Friendly Ghost Mattress Company for when you need to sleep off that fest potion hangover. All right, Jody, let us bring this topic into the light with our core takeaways. Give me the first one, bud.
All right. 3. Hell, where's that? Don't ever do that again. All right. When you are BYOS, as we said in this episode, 3 rails to consider: stats, modes of play, luck tokens. As Tupac said, how do you want it?
Oh, jeez. All right. Look, my second one is don't knock until you try it. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in play. And this whole show is sort of built on the foundation that play is the thing, right? And that we learn, and by doing, we learn by rolling the dice, we learn by sitting down. And so if there's a game mode like grinder mode that you react to, like I did, with suspicion, and you don't know if it's going to be right for your group, the only way to know is to try it. And I think it's worth trying these game modes out, and I'm looking forward to getting a few more of them under our belt some point soon.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback that kind of with my last takeaway with it. It's not too late. I mentioned during Blitz mode that maybe there's a scenario in your game for 1 session where for some reason the torches are only 30 minutes. You're in a snowstorm. You can just try it. You don't have to commit to a life of Blitz or Grinder or Hunter or Pulp, you could have a scenario where one of these modes becomes active and then check with your group and see how it went. You can try these things. You're not locked in. There is no Shadowdark police coming for you.
And I just want to end with a as we sometimes do in these last takeaways, with a somewhat more kind of high-minded or esoteric takeaway, but it's really important. And I think one thing that gets lost, we try and like define what is the OSR, and like combat is a failed state, as you so often like lament, right? Like these sort of dogmatic approaches to play. I think that we miss the forest through the trees, which is the DIY spirit of the OSR. This movement that was born of people just trying stuff, hacking and slashing games and putting them together and just doing stuff. That like zine culture, right? And I want to encourage everybody, like Kelsey put these game modes into the core rulebook to show you that you can break almost every tenet of the game if you do so with deliberate intent. And I just want to say that like that has always been the core spirit of the OSR, regardless of whether or not Shadowdark is an OSR game or not. I don't care. Let's get back to the spirit of do it yourself, and let's BYOS.
In the spirit of a podcast.
Oh my God, it's too loud. It's too loud.
Try
Jody.
and get out of here. All right, as the tour take goes, Jim, we hope you're able to find something useful in this episode that you can take into a future game. One too many fest potions. If you have any questions or unique experiences for your table that you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, email us or get at us or look it up. You can get us. You'll find us. You can find links to feeds and stuff in our show notes. Do that. Until next time, may your taverns be light, may your shadows be dark, and may you have it your way.
Oh, damn it. All right, Dungeon Master Diaries is a production of the Stingbat Radio Network. It's produced by Jody Kropholler. I think I need to make this a little louder. And it is produced by Matt Bruner. Our intro and outro music is composed by Christian Schuster, and Dungeon Master Diaries is an independent production and is not affiliated with the Arcane Library, LLC. Shadowdark RPG is a product of the Arcane Library. Copyright 2023. We do these things live every single time.
So we're a professional.
That's why you got to wait till the end. Right. This is where all the spicy content is.